Welcome to the Business of Travel, the official podcast of the Global Business Travel Association. I'm Callum Hawley, Vice Chair of the GBTA Aviation Committee Europe, and I'll be your host for today's episode. Today's podcast is titled, Does NDC Matter to My Programme? Not every corporate needs to implement new distribution capability, or NDC, immediately, and many can wait for their TMC to enable NDC content. Given all the noise around NDC, is there a temptation to rush NDC content rather than question whether it is relevant at this time? And I'm delighted to be joined by two esteemed travel industry experts. First up, we've got Scott Davis, CEO of the Institute of Travel Management. Scott, hello, how are you?
Hey, Callum, I'm really good. Thanks for having me.
No, thank you for joining. And secondly, we've got David Frangel, Senior Director, Global Air and Ground Practices at Advito. David, thank you. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you, Callum. Thanks for having me.
Thank you again. So I'm relying on you both, actually, to help answer the all-important question, or questions probably, around NDC as we go through this. But David, I'm going to come to you first, if I can, please. If you were asked by a person running a travel program, does NDC matter to my program, what would you have to say to them?
I would definitely say yes. Go ahead, get on board now, because this is the way the industry is going, and it's really better to be ahead of the game. And first of all, I want to insist on the true objective of the new distribution capability, because NDC value proposition is to give more choices to the travelers and a modern retailing experience. So it's about selling all the services an airline can provide in a much better shopping experience. It's really about services and less on pricing. And actually, for now, the NDC value proposed by airline is mainly based on pricing, on fare savings. And airlines have started the NDC approach by focusing on the pricing side, launch attractive fares out of the traditional system and make them available on NDC connections. And if we look at figures based on different sources, we can tell that around 5% of the total corporate transactions in 2024 are NDC. So it's 5% of tickets. But when we look at spend, it's much lower. And why? It's because a big majority of the NDC bookings are on domestic or regional flights, and mostly from the home market of the airlines. So, for example, the Germany for Lufthansa, UK for BA, etc. And airlines, they want to start gradually with limited exposure and focus first on low value fares. Also because of relatively high distribution cost on this type of fares, and as I just said at the beginning, NDC is about services, and the fact that it's better to start with domestic flights, restricted fares, because on this type of fares there is limited services related to this kind of fares. So what we can say is about NDC is the fact that NDC adoption is growing significantly now. In the last few quarters, it was really a huge soar. But we are still at the beginning of the NDC journey. And because if we look at the entire set of IATA airlines, so there are about 300 IATA airlines, 20% only have started working on NDC development.
That's an incredible stat, actually, when it's in front of you. So 300, only 20%. So why? Because to me that seems actually like a relatively low percentage of that 300, given how much time we all within the sector spend on NDC and have done for what seems like forever. So why is it still only at sort of 20%?
I think it's due to two two major challenges. I would say the first one is about technology, because you need to have enough technology available in order to make this kind of progress. And the second one is about strategy, because you know that having this NDC approach is really a very strong evolution on the marketplace. And also you need to work with all the ecosystem of travel. You need to work with TMCs, OBTs, GDS, and that's why it's quite complicated to make it happen. So that's why it took a long time between the real start of NDC. It was back in the years 2010s to now, with a very strong evolution in the last few years.
Thanks. That's really, really interesting there. And Scott, you've worked on both sides with, you've worked for airlines in the past, and obviously now you're in charge of a buyer representation association, and so you probably see it from both sides. There's lots of what you hear from David there sort of align with your thoughts, and if a member came to you and said, does it matter to me? What would your views be around that as well?
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it, how views change over time. I think today buyers are pragmatic and understanding of the advancements that we're making in terms of NDC. As you say, Callum, my career is an interesting sort of background to this. I work for two airlines, a GDS and TMC, and so sort of seen the various stakeholders. Yeah, well, and I didn't do it on purpose, really, I promise you. But I think what's really important to understand is that airlines, like any kind of retailing business, want to control their shop window as much as possible to be able to present their products in a really compelling way. Airlines have a lot of factors in their day-to-day running which are out of their control, like weather, like war, like politics, like the price of fuel. But distribution is an area that they would like to take control of, and that's completely understandable. Further background to that, during COVID, a lot of airlines took on a large amount of debt in order to survive and thrive. And so, it's natural they should look at all of their addressable costs. I think from a buyer point of view, buyers accept that NDC is here. Unfortunately, those three letters have begun to develop a bad reputation, and some people roll their eyes, don't they, Callum? Not the likes of you, such a forward thinker as you are. But, it's just the way that airlines retail their products, and things have changed. So I think buyers are very pragmatic. And, what's really key for a buyer of any kind of size, small program, very large program, its partners and the way they support it on this journey is critical. And that particularly includes, of course, travel management companies and booking tools.
Yeah. So as a buyer, ultimately it matters because it's there, it's happening. Our major carriers are sort of either going down the lines of NDC or are planning. They're working on it, but maybe haven't necessarily released what that plan's going to look like as such so far. And Scott, I mean, from an experience perspective, David's obviously spoken there that it isn't just pricing. What is that? What is it that those airlines are trying to achieve? For buyers, to help them to understand what's going on here. I think David did a great job. But just to reiterate, what is it that those airlines are trying to achieve by going this route?
Yeah, there's a number of things. Of course, they're looking about those addressable costs that I talked about, but it's primarily about showcasing their wares in a way which suits their own approach. Airlines are amazing companies. If you've ever worked for one, it's every day's a school day. It's an education. They're very confident companies, and their distribution strategies are set to support their version of success. I think where the industry has had a tough time with NDC is on a couple of parts to it, really, which is the way that some approaches are rolled out, and particularly from a buyer's perspective, the fact that almost every airline has gone about it in a slightly different way.
Yeah.
And the key, as you know, as a key buyer in our industry, Callum, is that a buyer on a travel program must be able to shop transparently across all providers. And so however airlines provide their products to the shop window has to be in a comparable way. And that's often been a part of the difficulty, and why perhaps progress hasn't been made as quickly as people might have expected.
But it's interesting because we are in that sort of description of the title that we read at the beginning. You sort of said, is there a temptation to rush NDC content? And that's from a buyer's perspective. Is there a temptation to rush into ensuring that you've got access to it? But I suppose it works in both directions. I think we have maybe, as an industry, experienced over the past sort of 3 months some acknowledgements that some companies, and we won't name them, but everyone will know who they are, maybe did rush a little, and out the blocks. So do you think as a buyer you can rush? This goes for both of you here. Can you rush the opportunity to have access to that content? And I mean, I know what my view as a buyer is, but it'd be interesting to hear from yourselves. Is there a possibility that you can rush to have that content? David, I don't know if you want to go first.
Yes, absolutely. I think it's really critical to discuss with your suppliers for travel managers to know exactly where all suppliers stand, airlines, travel management companies, online booking tool companies, GDS, to know where they stand in the NDC rollout, to know if actually what is proposed by airlines as NDC content is available. What is it, and in what extent it could fit with your travel program needs. So I think it's a first step. And as we discussed just before, it's so far we're talking a lot about pricing, but I think in the coming months, it will be very interesting to see all the bundles proposed by airlines. The fact that they will be able to associate a fare on the service. It can be extra luggage, lounge access, priority boarding, any additional service. And this kind of personalization for the corporate program is really key, and this is the objective of the new relating model. So back to your question, I think it's extremely important for travel manager to really know where they stand with airlines and all their suppliers in this NDC rollout.
Amazing. And Scott, I mean, partly on the rushing the content, but David mentioned some really good bits there with, the adding seats and bags and, booking meals or personalization and that offer side of things as well. Does that matter? Do you see those questions coming up from a buyer membership with regards to the appetite for that as well?
Yeah, one of the perennial challenges of a travel manager is the old chestnut of the traveller found it cheaper or better elsewhere outside of the programme. And a lot of the developments in NDC have targeted the leisure market or consumer market initially. And sometimes, those are comparable to offers which are made in the corporate market. So, travel buyers need to be able to explain to their travellers, and really especially, Karen, their stakeholders, because as much as travel managers, travel buyers have had to become quite considerably knowledgeable about distribution and the changes which are taking place, often their stakeholders understandably do not understand to the same degree, and travel buyers end up being caught in a kind of communication chain really to understand why things are the way they are. But
and in fact you can make it more, I have completely can resonate to that, because you can make it so much more complicated than you need to. So sorry I interrupted there, Scott, but I'm nodding away with you.
Yeah, but you're a perfect example, Callum, because you need to be able to explain it in the elevator for 60 seconds to someone, don't you? It needs to work that way, and it's very, very difficult to. But to your initial question about the pace of implementation, I think it's fair to say travel buyers are willing and able to proceed at whatever speed is the slowest link in the chain. So they have to work with stakeholders throughout, as I said, from the supplier, being the airline in this particular case, through to the booking tools, TMCs, reporting systems, expense systems, as they can all work. Most buyers are pretty open to making it come alive in their program. The key is that this has to be able to work within a managed program and the ecosystem that sits around it. Otherwise, all the work that travel buyers do to promote the value of their managed travel program can be at risk.
Yeah, so it's very, as we're hearing as we go through here, the single question of does it matter is very difficult to answer in one word, isn't it? It is a means of ifs, buts, maybes, whens, hows. Ultimately, we believe that it does matter because we live with it, we breathe it most days. Many of us that are, certainly working with major carriers around the world will be hearing about NDC, if not booking NDC. We as a business have been and took the decision very early on that if it was an opportunity to have access to as much content as possible, then we wanted it. We are smaller than many other businesses when it comes to travel, so it's maybe a little bit easier actually than some of the massive behemoth companies whereby it affects them so much more as a business. Do you see any disparity in view, and this is maybe one for both of you I suppose, but in terms of size of business as to how involved they've become or how open they are with regards to NDC and how quick they've been able to implement it within their structures within the travel program? Scott, I don't know if you've had much experience.
It does vary, Callum, and obviously some travel teams are large, some travel programs are very large, and some come in other sizes. I suppose one of the things that comes into play is that the larger you are, probably the more bespoke your technology solutions are for you. Whereas smaller SME type organizations tend to take a more off the shelf style product from their TMC and from their technology partners. So that probably explains the sort of appetite between the two. Of course, many of ITM's members, and this applies throughout the GBTA family, the buyers will be one person shows within their organization, and so it's really difficult to line up additional resource to be able to add layers of complication. So this is where it's really important for buyers to have strong peer and benchmarking conversations with their colleagues in the industry to understand the learnings here. I think short answer to the question is yes, it does matter, large versus small program.
Yeah, I would add that what is really key is about managing this transition, which is a priority for travel buyers and travel managers, because there is a temptation from some travelers. So it can be from small, medium, large companies to book off channel with cheaper NDC fares. And what is very key is to make sure that all the travelers are informed, educated on the benefits of having a compliant air program for duty of care, reason, compliance with travel policy, also negotiation power with the airlines, because all these off-channels bookings are not reported. And at the end, the amount of spend you have is a key asset to negotiate with the airlines. So that's why it's very, very important to inform and educate travelers, and at the same time encourage collaboration between all stakeholders, airlines, travel management companies, global distribution system, online booking tools, to get back to full content, including NDC, so that you have the full picture and the full content of all fares and services provided by airlines, and it's the best way to manage a program.
Fantastic. Well, we're sadly very quickly coming to the end of our time. I think we could probably talk for hours, to be honest. Lastly, I think I know what the answers are going to be here, but we'll ask that first question again, which is, does NDC matter to my programme? And if you can give me a one-word yes or no answer, try not to say maybe, but I think I know what you'll say. David?
Yes.
Scott?
I'm loath to give you the one-word answer, Cam, because it feels like we should be cleverer than that. But I'm going to say, of course, yes, self-evidently, yes. But collaboration is key, and that is with every stakeholder in the journey, because these objectives will only meet the original intentions of the airlines if it's lined up within the needs of the corporate travel program.
I'll let you off not giving one word, because that was a vitally key response there. So
I was trying to give you a simile. It matters to a travel program like my dog's food matters to her. You know, it's we get it online at the moment. If you told me we had to start getting it a different way, we'd have to understand it and work with our partners to find a solution.
Start cooking, yeah.
No, I'm not doing that.
Well, thank you both, Scott and David, for everything there. It was really, really interesting. For the listeners further to this podcast, the European Aviation Committee will be hosting a breakout session at GBTA conference in Copenhagen in November, which hopefully everybody will be coming to, everyone that's listening. I believe you're both joining, which will be great. That session is going to be called Continuous Pricing. What will tomorrow's corporate contracting look like? So it's a bit of an evolution on from just solely talking about NDC. It's the much bigger picture of continuous pricing and what that looks like. I'll be moderating that session again, and I'll have a panel made up of a couple of very well-known European airlines, a corporate buyer and a consultant who'll be tackling those questions in Copenhagen. So we hope that everybody can join us there too. You've been listening to The Business of Travel, the official podcast of the Global Business Travel Association. For more information about GBTA and its work, visit gbta.org and be sure to rate and review us wherever you get your podcasts. Until next time, thanks for listening.